Football quote machine himself, Curt Cignetti, has spoken out on the Ohio State Buckeyes ahead of this weekend's matchup, and one of our top wide receiver recruits is getting pulled a bunch of different directions by some other rival Big Ten schools, and we got to break it all down. What's up, guys? I'm Matt Long. Welcome to Columbus Football 365. Guys, thank you to each and every person who has hit that subscribe button. Thank you to every person who takes the time to watch any of these videos, guys. Thank you so much for 2,000 subscribers. It really means a ton to me. But let's jump into the news for today. Coming from Curt Cignetti himself, asked about the Ohio State Buckeyes today. He said they're a great football team. Obviously, won a national championship last season, have won multiple national championships. Ryan Day is a great coach. He'll be one of the legends of the game someday. They're dominant really everywhere. A lot of great players, very explosive on offense. So, unfortunately, Curt Cignetti, being the fantastic, smart coach that he is, didn't give the Ohio State Buckeyes any sort of bulletin board material. I mean, you know that he's thinking it. Curt Cignetti has said a whole lot of things. He's a highly confident individual. Let's just go with it that way. So he's thinking some things about Ohio State, but so far, still only Monday. So far, he is deciding to kill Ohio State with kindness, singing only the praises of the Ohio State Buckeyes, and for good reason. But before we even dive farther into what he was saying, just quickly to qualify Curt Cignetti, if you're unfamiliar with his game, coached at James Madison for a couple years, had a very good win-loss record there, then took the job at Indiana last season, led them to the playoffs at 11-2. This season, leading Indiana to a 12-1 regular season undefeated. Absolutely crazy stuff for the guy who's coaching in the Sun Belt pretty recently. But he took the time to praise the Ohio State defense, which is the number one part of the Ohio State Buckeyes team. So far, we have absolutely shut down every single offense that we have faced, allowing only 203 yards per game allowed, which is just insane. I mean, Indiana also has a great defense at fourth in the country, averaging 251.8 yards allowed per game. Interesting, some people might bring up the fact that there are in the top four, three of the four top defenses in the country all come from the Big Ten. So a definitely decent question to be asked is, are those teams' defenses really that good, or is the Big Ten offenses that weak? But a quick deeper dive into the Big Ten, you can see there are still, this conference isn't as good as it was supposed to be. Obviously, Penn State didn't live up to expectations. Some other of those out west programs that are in the Big Ten now for strictly financial reasons, not geographical reasons at all, they didn't really hold up their end of the bargain either. But Ohio State still has an elite defense. Indiana still has an elite defense. Indiana and Ohio State have statistically over the entire landscape of college football, some of the best team offensive stats and team defensive stats, and are absolutely amazing programs. One thing that's interesting to look at is looking at Curt Cignetti's, pathway. We got his James Madison Dukes that he left are also having an amazing defense, as well as his Indiana Hoosiers. But looking at what the odds makers are expecting versus the Indiana Hoosiers, they're expecting a somewhat tight game. Ohio State as a 5.5 point favorite is a larger of a favorite than you may suggest. That's a bigger favorite than a whole lot of people would think, because Indiana is a 12-0 team. Now, playing in their conference championship game, how is a 12-0 team a 5.5 point underdog? That seems like a little bit, as good as I believe that we are. And, even though we are ranked number one defensively, I still feel like 5.5 is kind of a lot of points, because I have a ton of respect. Really could not have more respect for what Indiana has accomplished this season. And I really don't expect this to be this not even lopsided of a game, but this not close of a game. I'm very surprised that this spread isn't a 1.5 point spread or a 2.5 point spread, because Indiana is in the top 10, both offensively and defensively, of the entire landscape of college football. So this team is really no joke. If you are someone who is questioning, does Indiana really deserve the number 2 overall ranking in the country? Remember, this is a team that beat Illinois, who's at the time ranked number 9. They were ranked too highly. I understand that, but still a ranked Illinois, a team that's currently flirting with around the 30th ranking in the country. They beat them 56-10. That is insane. Indiana is absolutely amazing, led by one of the best coaches in college football, Curt Cignetti. We can imagine that later in this week he's gonna slip up at some point. I'm hoping. I'm really hoping that he is gonna give us some bulletin board material, because right now, not the juiciest quote in the world, but this is going to be a really tough game. Fernando Mendoza is expected to be one of the favorites to win the Heisman Trophy. He's currently the leader of the clubhouse in terms of Heisman betting. But the Heisman Award, you have to imagine, is going to go to whoever is the quarterback of the winning team in the Big Ten championship game, whether that is going to be Julian Sayin for us, or if Indiana is able to upset us, then it would be Fernando Mendoza. So don't have to tell anyone watching this video that this game has huge implications. This game has a ton at stake. What we are playing for is the first overall seed in the college football playoff. You would imagine the loser is going to go to 2 and not going to fall farther, but that depends on how the other championship games go. Georgia, who is currently ranked number 3 after they're going to jump A&M, so they're going to be 3. If Georgia is able to blow out Alabama in that SEC championship game, then maybe the loser of the Big Ten championship game drops to 3, but the College Football Playoff Committee has came out multiple times and talked about how the conference championship games can only help you, so I would not expect to be the loser of this game is going to fall very far. So what's going to be at stake on Saturday night in Indianapolis? It's going to be first seed in the College Football Playoff and the Heisman Trophy, and both of these teams, only one of these teams are going to be able to have the opportunity to come out still undefeated. It's going to be really tough. We're going to have 2 of the best coaches in all of college football. And really, I don't think there's any question on who the best 2 teams in college football are, even if the Big Ten isn't as competitive as it was supposed to be. But in the opening, I mentioned that there was a Ohio State, another recruit. I mean, we talked about Chris Henry Jr., currently playing for Mater Dei High School, being recruited by other people or other teams. And there is now another Ohio State commit being recruited. Dixon Wyatt is the number 136 recruit in the nation, the number 18 wide receiver, the number 15 player from California per Rivals industry ranking. Caden Dixon Wyatt is a teammate of Chris Henry Jr., and while committed to Ohio State, both USC and the Oregon Ducks have been heavily targeting him. Dixon Wyatt told Rivals, "It was a bunch of my teammates. It was most of my teammates. They were pushing for me. I got to talk to head coach Lincoln Riley on the phone and had a good conversation with him, but my friends do what they do." Now, while it is trending that Dixon Wyatt will stick with Ohio State, it is not impossible for the Trojans to pull off the flip with the help of the receiver's high school teammates. So what we are saying here is there are a couple of other Mater Dei players who are committed to USC, and they are talking to Dixon Wyatt, trying to get him to flip his transfer from USC or from Ohio State to USC. And while he said the smart thing, he said, my teammates are going to do what they do, which is correct. You can't control the other people. And think about back when you were in high school, or if you're currently in high school watching this, if you were a big time recruit going to a big time school in which those USC kids are, you would want all your friends to go with you. And you would recognize that Caden Dixon Wyatt, that's a guy who can help our program and help the USC Trojans. So I want to bring my guy with us, and I want to do everything that I can do to help my team be as strong as possible and have as good a recruiting class as we can possibly have. Now, the problem is that I have no problem with. The thing that you don't want to see is one of our recruits getting on the phone with Lincoln Riley and talking to other coaches. This is the second of the Mater Dei wide receivers that we're hearing Oregon is currently trying to poach. I mean, you can't really blame them for trying. In this NIL portal era, there is less and less, the transfer portal recruiting, when you get guys recruited early, it is starting to matter less and less and less, because with NIL, anyone can swoop in at the last moment with a big deal and get the top recruits to flip their recruitment, because now it's about money. It's not just about team fit and how much you like the school. So it's not like, a couple of years ago, you would have went to a school and said, I really like this coach. I really like this program. I like the school. Maybe if you weren't a top recruit, they had, a good major for you to set up the rest of your life outside of football. But now, I mean, you're going to say, I'm going to go to Ohio State because they gave me $300,000. But then, I'm not going to say that, but then USC comes with $600,000. So you say, you know what? Maybe USC isn't as good of a fit for me, but I want to go to USC because they're offering me over double the money, so I'm going to go there. That makes a ton of sense. There is less and less of, commitment, and it makes it whole lot tougher on these coaches. And I'm glad that I'm not someone who is in charge of keeping those locker rooms together, because it must be a nightmare. But if we want to look at the player rating for Caden Dixon-Wyatt, currently ranked as a 4-star on 24/7 Sports, nationally ranked the 47th recruit in the country, number 6 wide receiver, number 5 recruit in the state of California. Overall, of a composite ranking of more recruiting sites, not just 24/7, they have him a little bit lower outside the top 100, but that doesn't mean he's not still a great recruit. 4-star recruit, you would imagine Caden Dixon-Wyatt is still someone that we want to be locked in on and making sure we're bringing him in to get him to Brian Hartline. As soon as these young wide receivers, as soon as Brian Hartline gets his hands on them, they turn into superstars, and hopefully Caden Dixon-Wyatt will just be the next example of that. And I can't wait to see what him and his teammate Chris Henry Jr. are going to do at Ohio State. So if you stuck around this long in the video, I appreciate you taking your time to watch it all the way through. Please hit that like button if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and go Buckeyes.